Why, hello there, everyone, and welcome back to GSL-English. My name is, of course, Gideon, and in today's lesson, we are going to look at some very British vocabulary and expressions. Now, what we are going to look at today would perhaps be considered slang or more informal English. But these expressions and words are great to use if you want to sound more natural in your English conversations. So let's see what they are. So as always, it is my pleasure to welcome you back to another class. If you are a returning viewer, then thank you so much for joining me again for another lesson. But if this is your first time here, then you are most certainly welcome to our English class today. And please don't forget to subscribe for more incredible, if I do say so myself, English learning content. But let's focus on today's lesson. So I'm going to present to you some very common words, phrases, and expressions that I hear being used all the time in the southeast of England in a natural and informal way. Because that's what we want, isn't it? We want to speak English in a natural way. We want to communicate in a genuine and authentic way, and using more informal expressions will help us to do just that. So why don't we get straight into it? Let's look at word number 1 of this class, and that is banter. Banter. Now, banter is a massive part of British culture. It's something that I do with my friends, with my family. It's something really that shows we are close to someone or shows that we feel comfortable with who we are talking to. But what is it? Well, by definition, banter is the playful and friendly exchange of teasing remarks. So it is playful. It's meant in a friendly way, but we say certain comments that might be considered teasing or making just a little joke at somebody else's expense. So basically, banter is just light-hearted. You know, it's not meant to hurt anyone. It's not meant to overly insult someone. It's just teasing remarks or sarcastic comments or little jokes because someone has done something or said a particular thing. But it is not meant to hurt somebody's feelings as such. So really, banter is generally something that we do with someone we know or someone that we feel comfortable with. For example, we wouldn't use banter if it was our first day at a new job and we were talking with our boss. No, a teasing remark or making fun of our new boss would not be appropriate. But if we're meeting friends that we've had for years down the pub, then banter will most definitely happen because they're our friends, because we feel comfortable with them. I'll give you just a little example, okay? So let's imagine we do meet our friends down the pub after work, and our friend says to us, "Oh, I've had such a difficult day at work." And you say, "Really? I didn't know pushing buttons was that difficult." Okay, so you're saying basically insinuating or teasing that their job isn't that difficult. Even if they might have an extremely difficult job, we're basically saying that all they do is push buttons. Now, we're not saying that in a way to insult. We're just saying it as a friendly little joke. It's light-hearted teasing, and that's what banter is. Some people go to extremes with their friends, and some others, it's just more generally light-hearted comments, like the example that I gave you. But it's a really important thing in British culture. But one of the keys to perfecting banter is knowing when to stop. Sometimes we might say a little joke and we can see in our friend's face that they're just not in the mood for it. Well, maybe that's the time to stop. Or in English, sometimes we say, read the room. We might be used to banter with our friends, but it might not be the appropriate time. So we have to learn how to use banter effectively and appropriately, but it is a natural thing. It can't be forced. So listen out for it. Perhaps in your English conversations or when watching TV programs, listen out for how banter is used effectively, but also how it is received by the person it is aimed at. So that's the first word that I wanted to present to you. Banter. I love it. Okay, the next word we are going to look at is a kip. A kip. What does that mean? Well, basically, kip is British slang for sleep. So if I'm going for a kip, I'm going for a nap. I'm going for a sleep. So basically, we can just use it, generally speaking, as an alternative word for sleep. And apparently, this word comes from factory workers in the 19th century and probably on into the early 20th century, where they would come home from a long day's work, really hungry, so they would eat a large plate of kippers. And then after that, because they've eaten so many, they would feel tired and they would fall asleep. Hence the term to kip. So it is a more informal term and perhaps bordering on slang, British slang, sleep, to kip. I'll give you an example. We could say, you can take my bed this evening, I'll kip downstairs. So maybe you have some friends or family staying over at your home. You offer them your bedroom and you say, I'll kip downstairs. I'm going to sleep downstairs. Or we could say, maybe, again, we've had a large roast dinner on a Sunday afternoon. This was me last week. You could say, right, I'm going for a kip. I'll see you in an hour. God, that sounds lovely on a Sunday afternoon, doesn't it? Kipping for an hour. But yeah, that's the idea. To kip, to sleep. That's vocabulary or word number 2. To kip. Okay, the third bit of very British vocabulary we are going to look at is actually an expression that I hear being used more and more often. And that is happy days. Perhaps you might have heard this one. It seems to be creeping up a lot more at the moment, but it is happy days. And we say happy days when we are responding to something that has happened or something someone has said that is good news to us. Or we feel good about what they have said and we say happy days basically to acknowledge that. To make the statement that that is good. For example, let's imagine you are at work and your boss says to you, we can finish early today. You could say, oh, great, happy days. Happy days. You can finish early today. That's brilliant. Or perhaps you've just booked a flight on holiday and the airline company says to you, don't worry, you don't need to pay to reserve your seats. Oh, happy days. Now, this is actually something I'm noticing a lot more traveling. I don't know if you've seen it, that we have to pay in advance now to reserve our seats. Is that just a new thing that I'm seeing a lot more? Let me know in the comments if you've noticed that. But if we don't have to pay to reserve our seats, oh, well, it's happy days. So we use that expression in response to something that we feel is good news or makes us happy. Happy days. The next expression is perhaps not as positive, okay? It is, I've had enough. I've had enough. Now, we're not talking about eating food here, because if we've had enough, we are full. We don't need any more. Or perhaps we do want some more, but no, we've had enough. Basically, when we say that we've had enough, it's a phrase that we use to express that we are unhappy about a particular situation or something that has happened and we want it to stop. Perhaps it is making us feel frustrated or annoyed and we want to either leave that situation or what is going on, or we just want it to stop. I've had enough. I don't want this anymore. Sometimes you find yourself in situations that you just can't take anymore. You're done. You don't want any more of it. And they're not always big life-changing situations. I'll give you an example. I was in the queue with my wife at Starbucks the other day. It was at a weekend. The queue was huge and it wasn't going down. We were there for 20 minutes and I said to my wife, look, I've had enough of this. Let's go somewhere else. She agreed. I've had enough. I'm done with this situation. I don't want this anymore. Or perhaps, we could just state an opinion that we had, that we don't want any more of a particular thing or a situation. For example, the public transport prices in London keep going up. So we could say, I've had enough of these prices, meaning that we don't want it anymore. It needs to stop. We are frustrated or we are annoyed about it. So when we say that we've had enough, we are just done or we are over or we want a particular situation to stop. I've had enough. I'm done. Okay. The next expression that we are going to look at is to keep an eye on it. And if we say that we are going to keep an eye on someone or something, it means that we are going to look at something regularly or we are going to monitor it carefully. We're going to keep track of what is going on. So we don't necessarily mean that we are literally going to keep our eye on that particular thing. We're not going to blink or look away. But we are rather saying that we are going to monitor it, consistently look at it carefully. For example, let's imagine that we are investing money in a company and they say, keep an eye on Tesla's stock today. It's having some interesting movements. Keep an eye on it, track it, monitor it, watch it carefully. Just see what's happening. Don't lose focus on it. As another example, perhaps we go to the doctors with a particular problem or way that we are feeling. The doctor might say, look, let's keep an eye on it and see how it develops. Just meaning, let's monitor it carefully. Let's track it. Let's focus on it and just see what happens over the next few days or weeks. We're going to keep an eye on it. I like this one. I use this a lot of the times. We're looking for flights to travel to America at the moment. We're keeping an eye on prices. We're not looking 24/7, but every day we are monitoring and tracking the prices. So to keep an eye on it. So there you go. There are some very British expressions that I wanted to share with you. Now, if you want to try using these in a sentence in the comments, please go for it. I will generally respond to all comments if I can. And even better, try using them over the next week. So take these expressions and maybe set yourself the goal of using one or two or all of them over the next week, because it's one thing learning them now. That's the first step. But the second step is to start using them, because the more we use them, then they will become part of our vocabulary. And in turn, we will use them in our natural conversations. So there you go. If you have any questions at all, please let me know in the comments. And don't forget, I do offer private online classes. So if you are interested, let me know in the comments and I'll give you some more information. As always, thank you so much for watching this lesson today, and I'll see you all very soon. Have a good one, guys.